Close your eyes for a moment and rest your palm against your chest. Just feel. That's all. Don't try to name it. Don't analyze it. Just notice what begins to change when you stop doing and start sensing. There's a quiet transformation underway already, and no belief is required for you to feel it. You won't need convincing or explanation. Your body understands something your mind hasn't been taught to trust. Because what you're about to tap into doesn't belong to textbooks or certifications. It originates in a space so old, so elemental, it was hidden in plain sight, simply because it defies complexity. The shift begins not with knowledge, but with presence, a kind of presence that doesn't ask anything of you, except that you show up with your full awareness. No one sells this process because it cannot be owned. No one controls it because it cannot be tamed. It was tucked away for generations, not out of difficulty, but because its simplicity made it impossible to monetize or manipulate. It's been referred to across history, sometimes guarded as secret wisdom, passed down not in manuals but in moments of direct experience. The kind of insight that doesn't shout but whispers in moments of stillness. Once it's activated, this internal movement requires no pushing. The body doesn't wait for permission. It responds instantly when it's heard. What we call illness or dysfunction may be nothing more than the body's last attempt to be acknowledged. When you begin to listen without conditions or judgment, you realize healing was never far away. It wasn't something to find. It was something waiting to be felt. Let's step into this together, not to gain some missing piece, but to clear away what's been cluttering your natural rhythm. Wholeness isn't something you have to create. It's what remains when you release the resistance that's been disguising it. The ancient wisdom keepers spoke not in terms of symptoms and syndromes, but in languages that merged sensation, awareness, and motion. They observed that what you physically feel is only the after effect of a deeper shift that has already occurred in a dimension of self you've forgotten how to observe. That unseen dimension isn't mystical or mysterious, it's simply overlooked. It's the subtle network that bridges your inner world to your outer form. It's where your thoughts, emotions, and unspoken stories create patterns that the body then reflects. Your organs are not passive machines. They are communicators. They translate your energetic tone. They hold the texture of your moods and interpret the background atmosphere of your psyche. When a feeling is sustained, day after day, year after year, it becomes more than just a passing sensation. It develops density. That energetic weight begins to place stress on the body, not because the body is broken, but because it is loyal to your internal experience. When that weight grows too heavy to carry invisibly, the body becomes the outlet. It begins to reflect what can no longer be ignored. We label this process with diagnoses and definitions, but the truth is simpler. It's a result of accumulation, not of toxins or bacteria alone, but of silence, of suppressed truths, of years of emotional tightening. What you thought you left behind, your body did not. It stored it, waiting for the day you'd return to feel what you abandoned. That discomfort in your gut, it might not be about digestion at all. It could be the residue of harsh truths you never voiced, of decisions you had to swallow without agreement, of emotions you choked back in order to keep moving. The weight in your joints may have less to do with age and more to do with your resistance to surrender. When life asked you to soften, you clenched. When you were supposed to release, you gripped harder. And your body responded, not as punishment, but as a faithful translator. Your lungs don't simply process oxygen, they hold stories. They remember the sobs you never cried, the words you never dared to say. The tightness isn't weakness, it's memory. A record of every time you pretended you were okay when you weren't. And still, your body doesn't blame you. It adapts. It holds. It protects. It absorbs what your mind can't face. What shows up in your body today didn't begin today. It's the echo of something long-standing. The final alert after every earlier signal was missed. Pain is never the first language. It is the final attempt. A body in pain is a body still trying. It hasn't given up. It is still calling you back to yourself. And if you can learn to hear what it's been saying all along, everything can change. We've been taught to treat pain like an enemy, to silence it, to numb it, to fight it. But what if pain wasn't an invader, but a message? Not something to be defeated, but something to be understood. What if your discomfort is the most honest thing you've felt all week? What if your symptoms are not signals of failure, but signs of honesty finally surfacing? Let go of the idea that the body is betraying you. It's doing the opposite. It's revealing your truth in a language you forgot you knew. And once you understand that the body doesn't lie, the way you respond begins to shift. No longer is your first instinct to fix or erase. Instead, you become curious. You begin to see patterns, connections between the emotional storms you weathered and the physical ripples they created. It's not just about joints or muscles or nerves. It's about the entire ecosystem of your being. The body is a mirror, not a machine. And what it reflects is your internal coherence, or the lack of it. When you stop seeing it as malfunctioning and start recognizing its accuracy, healing stops being a project and becomes a reunion. Imagine you've been ignoring a friend for years. At first they whisper, then they speak louder. Eventually they may shout, not in anger but in desperation. That's what pain is, a shout, a final plea for attention. It is the friend who stayed even when you turned away. The body will keep speaking until you finally answer. And when you do, when you finally give it space to be heard without resistance, it doesn't punish you. It softens, it calms, because that's all it ever wanted, to be in harmony with you. And harmony doesn't begin in the clinic or the pharmacy. It begins the moment you stop running from your own voice. That voice doesn't sound like thoughts. It doesn't argue or debate. It hums, it pulses, it contracts, it expands. It weeps through tension and exhales through ease. It guides you through sensations, not logic. The part of you that aches has something to tell you, but it doesn't speak your mind's language. It speaks in textures, in temperature, in weight. Begin to feel, not with analysis, but with openness. Ask your body not, what is wrong with you, but what are you showing me? The answers will not come in words, but in releases, in warmth spreading through cold places, in sudden waves of emotion with no mental explanation. That is the body unloading what it no longer needs to carry. And this is not a theory. It is a lived embodied process. The skin, the breath, the muscle, they are not separate from who you are. They are not containers. They are expressions. Every imbalance, every stiffness, every twinge is part of the larger dialogue your body has been trying to have with you since you were too young to ignore it. And there's more. The body doesn't invent problems. It records them. What feels like inflammation may be stored defensiveness. What seems like fatigue might be the accumulated cost of pretending to be strong when you needed help. What you labeled as a dysfunction might be your body's most loyal adaptation to an emotional environment it didn't choose but had to survive in. The body keeps a record, not of time but of tone. The tone of your days, the energetic flavor of your responses, the suppressed disappointments, the hurried mornings, the endless yeses when you wanted to say no. That tone builds layers. And when those layers become too heavy, something physical gives. Now imagine seeing this not as failure, but as fidelity. Your body has never been against you. It has been trying to protect you from day one. And in the moments it can no longer absorb the cost of your avoidance, it stops hiding it for you. That's what we call illness. But maybe it's not illness. Maybe it's revelation. Maybe it's the most honest your body has ever been. From this lens, you don't need to win a battle against your body. You need to reconnect with it. You need to learn its language, not just to understand it, but to honor it, to rebuild trust. Because if your body could speak in words, it would say, "I've been carrying this for you, hoping one day you'd notice." That day can be today, not by forcing change, but by allowing presence. Place your awareness gently on the parts of yourself that feel tight, sore, or forgotten, not to fix, just to notice. Let those places speak. Let them be seen. Let them be honored as part of your story, not as errors to be corrected, but as messages finally delivered. This kind of attention changes the chemistry of your field, not instantly, but steadily. Bit by bit, it restores coherence, because coherence isn't perfection. It's honesty, it's alignment, it's the internal agreement between what you feel and what you allow yourself to express. And when that agreement is restored, your body begins to regulate, not because you made it, because you stopped resisting it. There's a field surrounding you, a subtle structure that is shaped by your perception, your emotion, your memory. That field is not metaphorical, it is real. It is the invisible mold your body takes shape within. When the field is stable, the body reflects that stability. When it's fractured, the body shows signs of imbalance. And those signs aren't punishments, they are coordinates, markers showing you where attention is needed most. This is only the beginning. But once you take the first step, not with your feet, but with your awareness, something ancient within you begins to stir. The original intelligence that built your body from a single cell remembers how to organize itself. It doesn't require explanation. It only requires space. Let that be your practice, not to intervene, but to feel, to return, to listen, not with your ears, but with the stillness behind your breath. What happens from here will not be dramatic. It will be subtle, but it will be real, and it will be yours. You may not remember when you first disconnected from your body, but your body does. It remembers the precise moment your attention turned away from sensation and settled into overthinking. It remembers the day presence was replaced by pressure. That shift didn't happen loudly. It crept in, one quiet override at a time. The ache in your stomach, you dismissed it. The lump in your throat, you swallowed it. The tightness in your chest, you told yourself to push through. And the body, ever faithful, adjusted itself to your neglect. Every time you pretended not to feel, something inside tightened, not as a betrayal, but as protection. Your muscles learned to brace before your mind registered fear. Your breath shortened before you noticed anxiety. Your jaw clenched to hold back truth before a word was spoken. And slowly, without you realizing it, a pattern took hold, not just in your habits, but in your field. This field, invisible yet perceptible, is where every emotion, every thought, every reaction leaves an imprint. It isn't mystical, it's responsive. And when emotions are allowed to move through, the field flows smoothly. But when they are held, denied, or buried, the field begins to contort. That contortion doesn't go away with time. It waits. It weaves itself into the subtle blueprint your body uses to regulate every system. And eventually, when the tension becomes too much to contain, the body steps in as the speaker. What you feel in your joints, in your skin, in your heartbeat, it all begins in that energetic mold. And when that mold is cracked, no amount of surface correction can resolve the root. You can shift symptoms temporarily. You can mask discomfort. But until the original vibration is brought into awareness, the pattern continues, sometimes softer, sometimes louder, but always loyal to the signal it's been receiving from your field. Think of it this way. The body is the canvas, but the field is the hand holding the brush. If the hand is shaking, the image will distort. You can retouch the canvas endlessly, but if the vibration behind the brush remains unsteady, the distortion returns. To change the picture, you must steady the hand. And to do that, you must understand what is disrupting it in the first place. Unspoken words have weight. Suppressed emotions don't disappear. They disperse, not into nothing, but into tension, into fatigue, into subtle discomfort that becomes chronic. The body stores what you won't feel, not to punish you, but to keep your story intact. It's been said that every part of the body holds language. The throat doesn't just swallow food, it holds back truths. The shoulders don't just carry bags, they carry burdens you never agreed to. The lower back supports not just posture, but the pressure of roles you never wanted but took on anyway. All of it speaks. The language is physical, but the source is vibrational. The neck may stiffen after years of nodding yes when you meant no. The hips may lock from too many steps taken in directions that betrayed your inner compass. And your feet, those quiet supporters, may ache from holding you up while your heart collapsed under the weight of emotional debt. It's not random. None of it ever is. There is no such thing as an isolated pain. Each discomfort connects to a thread in the tapestry of your experience. That thread weaves through memories, habits, reactions, beliefs, and when you begin to trace it, not with your thoughts, but with presence, you find that pain is not an intruder. It is a breadcrumb guiding you back to where you disconnected, and disconnection is always the beginning of imbalance. But the beautiful thing is this: the body is always ready to reconnect. It holds no grudges. It doesn't demand penance. It simply waits for your return. And when you come back, not with urgency but with sincerity, it begins to soften. The field, once distorted, begins to stabilize. You may not feel it all at once, but something loosens. A breath goes deeper, a tension eases, a heaviness lifts. This is not magic, it's coherence, a harmony that occurs when energy flows without obstruction. And obstruction doesn't only mean trauma. It can be as simple as chronic self-abandonment, as common as a habit of overriding intuition, as normalized as living in constant reaction instead of grounded presence. When those patterns accumulate, the field warps, and when the field warps, the body reflects the distortion. You may have learned to trust only what can be measured, to prioritize data over sensation. But what if your sensation is data? What if the tingling in your hands is an alert? What if the pressure in your chest is feedback? The body is not a closed system. It is in constant communication with the environment within and around you. That conversation isn't verbal, but it's real. And when you begin to listen with new ears, with attention instead of analysis, you realize you've never been disconnected, only distracted. Everything changes when you stop trying to dominate your biology and begin collaborating with it. The body wants to be heard. The field wants to be realigned. Neither needs to be forced. They need to be understood. This understanding begins not with knowledge, but with observation, real observation, not the kind that scans for flaws, but the kind that witnesses without assumption. Place your focus, even for a moment, on a place in your body that feels tense, not to critique, not to fix, but to feel. What's happening there? What sensation rises when you bring your attention gently to that space? Is there heat, coolness, numbness, movement, stillness? Let the body speak, not through thoughts, but through its natural language of sensation. When you do this, you are not performing a technique. You are remembering a skill, a capacity that never left you. It just became buried beneath expectation, urgency, and distraction. Focus is not thinking, it's feeling with precision. And precision isn't intensity, it's clarity. The more clearly you feel, the more accurately the field begins to reorganize. Because the field responds not to effort, but to resonance. You can't trick it with affirmations that don't match your emotional state. You can't fool it with forced optimism. It vibrates to the truth of what you sustain, not what you hope. This is why frustration builds when change doesn't arrive through rituals or routines. It's not because the tools are flawed. It's because they aren't anchored in coherence. So what does that mean? It means your inner state must match your focus. If you focus on healing while carrying resistance, the field reflects resistance. If you focus on peace while feeling resentment, the vibration remains split. But when your focus and your emotion align, even for a few seconds, the field registers the signal clearly. That clarity is what reorganizes your system. You may have been told healing requires effort, but effort often creates more tension. The kind of transformation that lasts comes from release, not strain, from allowance, not control. That's why the most profound shifts often happen in moments of stillness, when you finally stop trying and simply allow yourself to feel. And when feeling deepens, breath follows. Breath is not just air, it is signal. Every inhale brings in new information. Every exhale releases a fragment of what no longer fits. When breath is shallow, it signals contraction. When it deepens, it signals safety. But you don't need to manipulate your breath. You only need to notice it. And in noticing, it begins to change on its own. The way you breathe reflects the way you live. Short, shallow breaths mirror a life lived in rush, in survival, in reaction. Long, steady breaths reflect a nervous system that trusts the moment. The shift from one to the other doesn't require training. It requires attention. And with attention, the field recalibrates. You don't have to force it. You only have to stop fighting it. Even your hands, so often overlooked, hold power. They carry vibration. When you place your hand on your heart, you're not just touching skin, you're transmitting presence. That presence speaks more loudly than any thought. It tells the field, I am here now. And the field, always listening, responds. Touch is not just contact, it's communication. It's one of the earliest ways we understood the world before language taught us to separate. Your body remembers that original form of knowing. That's why a simple gesture, when offered with full awareness, can recalibrate years of disconnection. And yet, this simplicity is often dismissed. Because we've been conditioned to associate value with complexity. The harder it is, the more real it must be. But the body doesn't operate on difficulty, it operates on clarity. It recognizes truth, not theory. It responds to what you feel, not what you recite. So the next time you feel pain, don't run. Don't reach for solutions before you've asked the only question that matters. What are you trying to tell me? Then listen, not with your ears, but with your whole self. Let your body guide you, not to something new, but back to something ancient, something you've always known but forgot how to trust. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about removing the noise that covers who you already are. Your original frequency hasn't disappeared. It's been obscured. And as you peel back the layers of pretense, urgency, and distraction, that tone returns gently, powerfully, inevitably. The body doesn't demand. It invites. It invites you to return to the place where feeling is sacred, where stillness is intelligence, where breath is the first language and focus is the bridge. When you accept that invitation, nothing external needs to change, because what shifts within becomes the blueprint for everything that follows. The body never wanted to fight. It never asked for war. It asked to be felt, to be seen, to be honored. When you do that, healing stops being an achievement and becomes a reunion. And reunions don't require answers. They require presence. Let that presence grow, not as a task, but as a rhythm. A way of being that no longer bypasses what hurts, but embraces it as the first doorway to truth. Because when you meet yourself there, in the exact space where discomfort lives, you find that beneath the ache, there is clarity. Beneath the tension, there is release. And beneath the pain, there is you, intact, aware, and whole. There is something deeply honest about discomfort. It strips away distraction. It centers you, not because you want it to, but because it forces you to pay attention. No one drifts casually through physical pain. It demands presence. It interrupts autopilot. It calls you to return to a conversation you've avoided for far too long. A conversation not with others, but with yourself. That twinge in your back, the pressure in your head, the fatigue that shadows your days, they're not inconveniences, they're indicators. They point to a part of you that's been silenced, held down, forgotten, or misunderstood. Your body is not an unreliable narrator. It's the only part of you that never lies. What it shows you isn't filtered through shame or ambition or story. It's raw, it's real, it's you, unmasked. But most of us don't listen. We distract, we explain away, we numb. And each time we do, the signal grows stronger, not out of cruelty, but persistence. The body repeats its message in louder ways until something in you stops and hears it, not as a flaw, not as a malfunction, but as a reminder that you can't outrun yourself forever, that what you suppress doesn't disappear. It waits. And when it finally comes through the skin, through the breath, through the bones, it's not to destroy, it's to illuminate. There is light hidden in pain, not the kind of light that shines to make things pretty, but the kind that reveals what has been buried, that shows you where your alignment was lost, that points you back to the doorway of return. Pain is not personal, it's not moral, it's not punishment, it's pattern. A pattern echoing through your field until the body becomes the only one left willing to carry the weight. When that weight reaches its peak, something gives. A muscle locks, a nerve inflames, a system falters. But this isn't failure, it's honesty in physical form. That's the shift. Understanding that the body isn't working against you. It's working for you in the only way it knows how. And once you understand that, you stop trying to overpower it. You stop declaring war on your own skin. You stop demanding silence from the one part of you that's been the most loyal. And instead, you listen, you soften, you learn its language. That language isn't complex. It doesn't require translation. It requires humility. Not the kind that shrinks you, but the kind that empties you enough to receive. To receive sensation without story. To receive emotion without needing to label it. To receive the moment as it is, without the filter of what you wish it were. This is how the body teaches, through rhythm, through signal, through tone. Every heartbeat, every inhale, every pulse is information, not random, not accidental, coordinated feedback from a deeper intelligence. And when you begin to align with that rhythm, the static drops, the resistance fades. What remains is a clarity that feels like peace, not because everything is perfect, but because nothing is being avoided. Avoidance is the true weight. It costs more energy to suppress emotion than it does to feel it. Denial is exhausting. Pretending to be okay when you're unraveling inside takes more strength than presence ever will. But we're taught that performance is safer than truth, that masking our inner chaos is more acceptable than admitting we need space to heal. That teaching is the root of most dis-ease, Because the moment you begin to fracture from your internal state, your body has to compensate. It has to balance the split between your inner experience and your outer behavior. That compensation doesn't come free. It accumulates like pressure behind a dam, and eventually the body can't contain it. You see it in the tremble in your hand, the clenching in your stomach, the migraines that follow stressful days. You feel it in the dizziness, the fatigue, the shallow breath that refuses to deepen. These are not random occurrences. They are your body's way of asking, again and again, can we feel this now? And if the answer continues to be no, the signals will get stronger. But here's what's important. The body never demands more than what you're ready for. It doesn't force the process. It invites you gently at first, fiercely if ignored, to return. To return to the unspoken grief, the hidden anger, the disappointment you didn't know how to hold. It asks you to hold those things now, not to relive them, but to acknowledge them, not to get stuck in them, but to free the energy they've trapped. Energy is never lost. It's either expressed or stored. When it's stored without resolution, it becomes dense. That density warps your internal environment. It slows digestion, disrupts sleep, inflames tissues, clouds the mind. But the moment you bring presence to it, you begin the process of unwinding, not because you're forcing change, but because awareness itself is a solvent. Awareness dissolves resistance, and where resistance melts, energy flows again. That flow is what we call health, not perfection, not absence of all discomfort, but movement, circulation, communication between parts. When your systems are speaking to each other, when your breath informs your heartbeat, when your spine supports your nervous system in a steady rhythm, that's health. Even if you still feel pain sometimes, even if you're still healing. Health is coherence. It's integrity in action. It's the agreement between your field and your form. And agreement doesn't mean sameness. It means alignment. That your thoughts, your emotions, and your body are no longer pulling in different directions. They are working in unison, responding in harmony, adapting together. This is where real transformation begins, not in grand gestures, but in consistent moments of coming home to yourself, placing a hand where you feel disconnected, sitting still long enough to hear your breath change, letting a tear fall without stopping it, feeling warmth return to a part of your body that's been numb for years. These are the rituals of return. They require no belief system, no doctrine, no complexity, just sincerity, just the willingness to be exactly where you are, as you are, without needing to fix yourself first. Because there is nothing to fix. There is only something to reconnect. Even breath, which we take for granted, holds the key to this. When you breathe with presence, something shifts. Your mind slows, your pulse steadies, your tension loosens. Not because you're trying to calm down, but because breath is the bridge between what you feel and what you allow. Every inhale invites presence. Every exhale releases pressure. But the way you breathe isn't just about the now. It reflects your history. Your breath has been shaped by every moment you held back a cry, every time you were startled and couldn't speak, every shock that made you freeze. These moments live in your respiratory pattern. Shallow breath isn't laziness, it's legacy, it's protection. It's a habit born in a moment where silence felt safer than sound. Changing that habit isn't about discipline, it's about safety. When your nervous system finally believes it's safe to breathe deeply, it will. No training required. Just trust. Trust built through gentle, repeated presence. And when that trust returns, so does the breath. Not as a tool, but as a rhythm of your original state. Touch, too, is a forgotten language. You touch objects, devices, tasks all day. But how often do you touch yourself with care? Not grooming, not correction, just presence. Just the silent gesture that says, I am here. I feel you. Your hand, placed with attention, can do more than most therapies, because it transmits intention, and intention, when pure, is powerful. You don't need to explain to your body what's wrong. It already knows. It doesn't need diagnosis, it needs contact. Not just physical contact, but conscious connection. When you place your hand on your chest or belly, or anywhere that calls for attention, you aren't just applying pressure. You're offering reunion. The body responds to presence like a flower responds to sunlight. It opens, it releases, it reorganizes. Not because you forced it to, but because you finally stopped holding it at a distance. You finally said, it's safe to feel now. And in that safety, healing becomes possible, not because you made it happen, but because you stopped standing in its way. Most of what's called healing is actually remembering. Remembering what it feels like to be whole, not in some ideal future, but right now in the mess, in the tenderness, in the truth of what you are. And what you are is not broken. You are not behind. You are not defective. You are out of rhythm. That's all. And rhythm can return. You've been told to chase balance like it's something outside of you, but balance begins in breath, in sensation, in honest emotion, in pausing when your body says no, in moving when your energy says yes, in aligning action with intuition, in living not as an idea of who you should be, but as the experience of who you actually are. The more you do this, the more your body trusts you, the more your field stabilizes, and the more you begin to sense not just your own truth, but the subtle shift around you. You become more sensitive, not in weakness, but in precision. You sense tension before it becomes pain. You recognize misalignment before it turns into a symptom. This is awareness in motion. And the more aware you become, the more energy you conserve. Because now you're not constantly suppressing, compensating, or correcting. You're flowing, you're listening, you're adjusting in real time. That's vitality. Not endless energy, but efficient use of it. Not being invincible, but being attuned. Attunement is the new strength. The ability to feel without fear, to act from presence instead of performance, to rest without guilt, to cry without shame, to touch yourself with care instead of critique, to breathe like it matters, because it does. Everything begins here, not with striving, not with doing more, but with doing less more deliberately, with being instead of proving, with allowing instead of resisting, with returning instead of escaping. And when you return, you find you never truly left. Only your attention did. And now that it's back, your body can begin to show you the way home. There's a quiet strength that returns when you no longer treat your body as a battleground, when you stop interrogating every ache and instead begin to meet those sensations like an old friend who has waited patiently to be heard. You don't need all the answers. You just need to stop turning away. Because that turning, that subtle disconnection, is what started the distance between you and your own wisdom. Every day, your body speaks in tight shoulders, in restless legs, in a stomach that clenches without warning, in fatigue that follows no logic. It communicates through rhythm and resistance, through warmth and weight. But somewhere along the way, you were taught to dismiss these signals, to override them with logic, to silence them with distractions, and so they grew louder, not to harm you, but to get through. What if the tension in your neck isn't from posture, but from holding back your voice one too many times? What if the heaviness in your limbs isn't laziness, but the emotional weight of decisions you were never given space to process? What if the pounding in your head isn't from too much stimulation, but from internal conflict unresolved for too long? This isn't poetic, it's practical. Your body is the most honest record keeper you have. It archives what your mind tries to forget. And that archive isn't just metaphorical, it's vibrational. Every unresolved moment, every time you swallowed your reaction, every time you pushed past exhaustion, every time you said, "I'm fine" when you weren't, was logged, not as punishment, but as a marker, a pulse in the field, a place that became dense. And over time, that density shaped how your systems functioned, how your breath moved, how your nervous system responded to stress, how your muscles learned to brace, even when danger was no longer present. This is why healing doesn't happen through effort alone. You can stretch and exercise and eat well and still feel off, because alignment doesn't come from the outside in. It begins with a recalibration of what you allow yourself to feel. It starts when you stop measuring progress by how much you're doing and start noticing how much you're avoiding. Avoidance has a cost. It costs presence, it costs clarity. It fragments your attention until you're no longer inside your life. You're observing it from a distance, managing it instead of inhabiting it. And your body notices. It notices when you move mechanically, without feeling. When you breathe from the chest instead of from the belly. When you rush through touch instead of letting it land. When you numb out instead of leaning in. But the beautiful truth is this: none of those habits are permanent. They're patterns, and patterns shift when you bring awareness to them, slowly, gently, without judgment. You don't need to punish yourself for disconnecting. Disconnection was survival. At some point it served you, but you're not there anymore. And now your body is offering you a new agreement. Come back, not in force, but in feeling. Place your hand somewhere on your body that's asking for attention. Maybe it's your heart. Maybe your lower back. Maybe a spot you haven't thought about in years. Don't analyze. Just listen. Let the warmth of your touch be enough. No words, no agenda, just presence. Notice what shifts. Maybe nothing at first. Maybe a subtle softening. A breath you didn't realize you were holding. A wave of emotion without a story. Don't reach for meaning. Let the meaning come to you through experience. Because sometimes what the body needs most is not to be explained, but to be met. You've spent so long trying to control how you feel, to schedule recovery, to quantify rest. But the body doesn't respond to timelines. It responds to sincerity. When it feels your attention is real, not performative, not impatient, it opens. And in that opening, release happens. Not because you forced it, but because you got out of the way. This is what true alignment feels like. Not perfection, not constant bliss, but a sense that your inner and outer expressions are no longer at war. That what you feel inside is allowed to exist outside. That your thoughts, emotions, and actions don't contradict each other. They support each other. They mirror each other. They move together. And in that coherence, healing doesn't need to be summoned. It begins to happen naturally, not because you earned it, but because you created the conditions for it. You stopped silencing your signals. You stopped judging your pace. You stopped demanding that your body move faster than it could. And instead, you let it lead. Your body knows the way back. Even when you feel lost, even when your mind spins in uncertainty, there's a deeper intelligence guiding your healing. Not linear, not logical, but deeply attuned to what you're ready to feel. And readiness isn't about bravery, it's about willingness. The willingness to sit in discomfort without needing it to vanish immediately. Because discomfort is not the problem. Resistance to discomfort is the belief that anything unpleasant must be pushed away. But what if that pain is trying to show you the exit from a long-standing internal misalignment? What if that sensation is a message from a wiser part of you, asking you to listen differently this time? You don't need complicated rituals to begin. You need a moment, a breath, a single act of presence. And from there you build, not like stacking bricks, but like following a rhythm, breath by breath, sensation by sensation. You don't need to get it right. You just need to stay with it. The healing you're looking for isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before you started shrinking, hardening, hiding. Before you learned to mute your instincts to survive a world that rewarded performance more than truth. That version of you never left. It's still there, beneath the layers, waiting. Not for rescue, but for reconnection. And reconnection doesn't require a perfect environment. It doesn't ask you to have it all figured out. It asks for honesty, for you to say, I don't know what this is, but I'm willing to feel it. And in that willingness, something sacred happens. The field around you begins to shift. Your breath deepens. Your skin responds. Your cells receive the signal that it's finally safe to soften. Softening isn't weakness, it's repair. It's the undoing of years of bracing. It's the release of held tension that you thought you needed to carry forever. It's the body's sigh of relief when it realizes it no longer has to armor itself just to be alive. That armor may have once kept you safe, but now it keeps you separate. Separate from your own joy, from your own voice, from your own sense of freedom. Removing it isn't a betrayal of your strength. It's a reclaiming of your aliveness. So allow yourself to soften. Not everywhere at once, maybe just one place, one breath, one moment where you drop the defenses and feel what's underneath. And if what you find is grief or fear or longing, that's okay. Those are not interruptions. They're part of the return. You don't need to rush this. The nervous system doesn't respond well to force. It responds to rhythm, to consistency, to kindness. If you offer that, day by day, the rewiring begins. The places inside you that once tightened automatically begin to loosen. The patterns that once felt immovable start to bend. And what you used to think was permanent begins to shift. Because nothing is truly stuck, only waiting. Waiting for your presence to land, waiting for your heart to open, waiting for your breath to say, I'm here now. And when that happens, the energy that's been frozen for years begins to melt. The places you felt disconnected begin to hum again. The numbness dissolves. Not all at once, but enough to feel the change. This is the process, not a destination, not a finish line, but a living relationship with your body, your energy, your truth. A conversation that deepens over time, that expands as you expand, that stabilizes as you learn to trust what you feel. And what you feel is valid, even when it makes no sense, even when it arrives without warning, even when it doesn't match the image you've presented to the world. Feeling isn't weakness. It's feedback, it's information. And the more you feel with honesty, the more aligned your field becomes. Alignment is not a posture, it's a frequency. A state of being where nothing is pushed, nothing is faked, and nothing is abandoned. It's what happens when you bring all parts of yourself into the room and say, we can be here together. From that place, the body doesn't need to scream anymore. It can whisper, it can guide, it can rest, because now it knows it's not alone in carrying the weight. You're here, fully, gently, consistently. And that changes everything. The healing you seek isn't ahead of you. It's not a goal. It's not in the hands of someone else. It's already inside you, quiet, clear, and waiting for the moment you stop searching and start remembering. not remembering facts, remembering how it feels to be present in your own skin without running away. And when that memory returns, not as a thought, but as a full body experience, you'll know. You'll feel it in your breath, in the way you walk, in the way your eyes soften, in the way your shoulders settle without being told, in the way your energy feels less like effort and more like flow. That is healing, not a cure, not perfection, but return. Return to what is already whole beneath the noise. Return to a state where you are no longer chasing peace. You are creating the space where it naturally arises. Return to the body, not as a problem to be solved, but as a partner to be honored. And from here, everything changes. Not because you tried harder, but because you finally allowed yourself to be exactly where you are,